And the US now I'm having from 8:30 to 10, so that we fit. In case we shall not be able to make it, then I'll see how best to divide that time. So then welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to see Mr. Wanyonyi, Wanyonyi back, and also Andrew Bodia back. So all of you, so I might not be able to mention all the names, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm happy to see you back again. So today, let me just do the introductory bit. So we might not take the whole of the 1.5 hours, but I'll just mention it so that we take off properly next week. So thank you very much. So and also I'd asked Mr. Chomba that I need assigned attendance list. You know, I cannot be paid until I present assigned attendance list. So I'm hoping that each unit will actually prepare for me the signed attendance list for the last semester so that I can present my claim. Without the attendance, then I will not be able to do so. I'd ask Mr. Chomba to liaise with you so that once you do so, I can come over and pick them from Mr. Chomba. So thank you very much. I hope that's going to be taken into consideration so that I can come and pick it up. So pick them up. So yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chomba. I think we shall talk. So now let us start. So the unit is PCE 2511. I think during last year, I think we managed to accomplish the curriculum for this one in a given time. So because last year, I also took the same one. So that's quite okay. So let's look at the course outline. The course outline for this one is quite small, and also if you look at it, the engineering management, which I will take you, and also this one, there are some topics which are repeated in each. So in that case, then, since it is me taking both, so I will not repeat those particular bit of the syllabus. So if I discuss it in civil engineering practice, then I will not discuss it in engineering management, because there are some topics which are overlapping each other. That's what I did last time. So whatever I discuss in civil engineering practice, I will not repeat it in engineering management. So because it is the same person. But if we are two different people, then I could repeat. So whatever we discuss here, I will not repeat it in the other one. So now let me present to you now the course outline, ladies and gentlemen. So the first bit of the course outline is standard preparation of standard construction specification for materials, workmanship, and methodology. That means that the main topic is specification. So we should actually do the specifications of materials, specifications for workmanship, and methodology. So that will be our first topic, ladies and gentlemen. The second one is to look under the surety bonds and insurance. You realize that when you're dealing with construction management, or when you're dealing with tendering procedure, or when you're dealing with procurement of construction, then you need the surety bonds. During the tendering period, you need the bid bond. Bid bond is a surety to ensure that all those who are going to participate, then they stay in there until the process is over. So that's actually the need for the bid bond, to ensure that whoever is participating, it proceeds up to the end, especially after the opening of the tender. Then nobody is required to withdraw. If you withdraw, then you lose your surety. This is just an assurance that the participating bodies remain in the process until the end. So there are two types of bonds here, ladies and gentlemen. We have the bid bond, and then we have the performance bond. Bid bond is during the tendering period, so that they can bound people to proceed with the process up to the end. And then once a bidder has been identified, then he now replaces the performance bond. No, he replaces the surety, the bid bond with the performance bond. So those are the two types of bonds. And when you talk of the performance bond, it also ensures that the contractor finishes the job, because when the payment is being done at any particular point, 10% of the payment is not released. It is retained by the employer, so that the contractor would be encouraged to go up to the end. And then when the contract is over, then the completion of the contract, then out of the 10%, 5% is paid. So that, and then now the other 5% waits until the period of liability is over, is when the 5% is being paid. So these are just to ensure that people participate up to the end. And then now the surety bond is to deal with the structure, is to deal with the construction. The insurance is different. The insurance will cover if somebody is injured during the contract, then the insurance covers it. If a vehicle has an accident, then the insurance covers it. If materials are stolen, then the insurance covers it. So both the surety bonds and the insurance are contained in the general specifications of the work, ladies and gentlemen. So there's a difference between the insurance and the surety bond, but we shall take it more into detail once we come into that one. I just wanted to explain to that one. So there's a difference between the surety bonds and the insurance. Insurance is to deal with accidental aspect. Surety bonds is to deal with the structure. In case the structure is not well done, then the surety bond could come in. In case the contractor abandons the job, then the surety bond will come in. In case there is whatever, then the surety now takes in. I was forgetting. There's also another aspect which comes in, the labor bonds. This is not something else to cater for the labor bonds. So this is just to deal with, to ensure that the contractor is going to pay for the services which he has borrowed from somewhere else, like the labor, like the material. So in this case, then that's also an additional which comes in. But we shall look at it when we come to the topic of surety bonds and insurance. Then there comes in the contract basis and the legal dispute. This is what I was trying to say, that the contract basic is also in the engineering management aspect of it. But we shall look at it is that what are the things which involves the contract? What are the legal disputes? This legal dispute, they are contained in the general specifications of there, which is involved into this one. So we shall look at how do we solve up this particular aspect in construction work or in civil works. There's always dispute, but it is recommended that when we have this dispute, we should not run to the courts, ladies and gentlemen, because the court is for the public. A contractor would not like to be known that is having problems. So if we have Chomba Construction Company, and Chomba Construction Company has got a problem with the client, Chomba Construction Company would not like people to know that I have a problem. It is like this one, because that will tarnish your you are the name of the company. So in that case, then the best solution for dispute resolution is arbitration, because arbitration is done quietly. It only involves the parties which have got the problem, ladies and gentlemen. And once it's done, nobody will actually not be able to know what is happening, because this one is done under confidential aspect. You only have the arbitrators with you and the other particular choice. So arbitration is the best means of solving dispute, because if you go through the litigation system, then a judge might not be might not have a good knowledge in civil work. That means that he will be asking a lot of questions so that he brings himself to that level before he can take a decision. And this one will take the time taken on this one will be so long and so expensive. So we always resort to arbitration, ladies and gentlemen, and we shall look more into arbitration. There's also one which is not stated here. We can also look at the other aspect of trying just to solve the problem without getting into arbitration. We shall look at those ones. Then there will be the civil engineering quantities. This is actually will be involved from there, then taking off from a drawing, taking off. How do you take off? Once you have taken off from the drawing, and then now you can now prepare your bill of quantities. It is the bill of quantities which are, but then now there's also something else here which I mentioned later on. The bill of quantities alone cannot be used for bidding, because the bill of quantities must not be showing the workmanship. The bill of quantities must not be showing so many things. So in most cases, then when you are bidding, the bill of quantities must be read together with the specification, because the specification is the one which gives you the details of things required. So that means that whoever is actually bidding must read the bill of quantities together with the specifications and together with the drawings and whatever have you. But especially the bill of the specification is the one which gives the workmanship. So then you can actually bid in a proper way. So those are the things which we are going to cover under this particular unit. So they look very few, ladies and gentlemen. That's just what we are going to cover. So, but they are actually elaborate, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just repeat again our coverage of this one. So we are going to look at the preparation of the standard construction specifications, materials, workmanship, and methodologies. Then from there, we shall look at the bonds and the insurance, ladies and gentlemen. We shall tie this one to the conditions of contract. We shall not actually have it in isolation, because all these things must be contained also in the conditions of the contract, so that they go together. Then we shall also look at the basic contracts and also the legal dispute. But the legal dispute here, we shall base it in those ones which are in the general conditions of contract, ladies and gentlemen. And then also, I'll be able to give you an example of the types of legal dispute which has been there, and what percentage do they account for, which are the general basics which are there. So we shall cover those ones under there. Then arbitration, we shall also have to look at it. So we shall also look at the advantages of arbitration over the legal litigation. We shall look at those ones. Then from there, then we shall now come to the taking off from a drawing. Then after you have taken off, then from taking off, then you prepare the bill of quantities. And so you see, there are also some hidden things in the bill of quantities. So these things as the prime cost and the provisional sums, those ones are part of the bill of quantities. Shall look at it. So ladies and gentlemen, this is actually the outline of what we are going to discuss, ladies and gentlemen, over this particular period. And I think more participation will be on your side rather than on my side. Me, I'll be guiding, and actually be doing it. So I think the people whom I had there last year, we did quite a very good aspect in terms of these ones, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the course outline. So allow me now just to make just a small introduction, and then we proceed on from next week. Let me just make a small introduction, ladies and gentlemen, tying up on that specification. Just a small introduction, and the next time we take it fully. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me just make just a small introduction, maybe about 30 or so minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So then we take off properly next week, ladies and gentlemen. So I've mentioned it to be my lecture once, just an introduction, ladies and gentlemen. So actually, it's just like the that means that a complete set of tender documents comprise so many of these documents, and I think I have not listed all, just a few, but as we proceed, then we shall bring them all into it. So this is the instruction to tenderers. That means that when you are bidding, then I think you have to give instruction. But then one thing I would like to mention to you, I think we shall look at it in engineering management, that most of the things we are talking of here, you don't actually start them from the beginning. They are always there. You only just feel into that one. Our last topic in the engineering management, we'll be looking at the various forms of these tender documents. That means that if somebody has won a tender, you don't have to bother writing anything. Forms are already there. You just fill in, ladies and gentlemen. So this is actually what has been done in the construction industry. It saves you quite a lot. So most of these things are there. So you just have a look at them. But then I'll provide them. I'll give the copies of each of these ones during the engineering management class. But for now, let's just look at it. So in this case, then you have the instruction to tenderers. That means that if a job is being tendered, you must give an instructions of what you require. We shall also get into that one in detail. Then you also have the form of tender and the qualification information which is required. I think we shall take this one into detail, and we shall have a practical example of one project, and you will see the qualifications which are required in there. So that means that if you are looking for a site engineer, what should be the qualifications? If you are looking for the foreman, what should be the qualifications? So those ones are already there. So I'll give you a practical example on this one. And then the conditions of the contract. These ones are contained in the contract document, so we shall also look into that one. And then the forms of sureties, which I've been talking of. Here we have got the bond, bid bond, and we have got the performance bond. And later on, there's also another one, which is not so much in public. There's also the labor bond and the rest. So, but we shall look at those particular bits, the forms of sureties, to ensure that you tie up the people with actually what you are doing. Then there's the specifications which I will be trying to introduce today. The specification will give you the workmanship. It will give you the material required. It will give you, if it is paint, it will say how many coats of paint are required so that you achieve what is required. If you want something to be not to be machine finished, but to be hand finished, then they come under the specifications. So that means that drawing specifications and the bill of quantities, they go together. There's no way you can put your units in the bill of quantities without looking at the specifications and the drawings. So, but if you just put your quotes in the bill of quantities, you might not actually win the tender because the specification will govern the cost of the items. And then there's also the forms of securities. That means that there are so many tender documents, but we shall have to look at them at appropriate time. Today, I was just mentioning them, ladies and gentlemen, so that you're aware of them. There are so many. I'll try and bring them up. But today, let me just introduce just one piece of specifications, and then we'll speak up next time, because the specification is one of the critical aspects in what we should be discussing, and it forms the first discussion under this civil engineering practice. But I'll just mention just a few things on the specification, then we pick it up next time. So that means that specification describes in detail the work to be executed under the contract, and the nature and quality of the materials and workmanship. So that's the role of the specifications. I mentioned to you then you cannot complete the, you cannot put your unit cost in the bill of quantities unless you have read the specification. Because specification will give you exactly what type of material. Specification will give you exactly what type of workmanship is required. Specification will give you, if you are mixing concrete, if you're doing the manual mixing of concrete. I remember last year I'd given that one in the final exam, so that to prepare the workmanship or the manual mixing of concrete. It might look very simple, but in detail, it contains quite a lot of it. That means in this case, then, it will show you how much water should you use. It will show you how much cement should you use and which type of cement. It should show you which proportions you could use, because the normal proportions which are always there, 1 to 2 to 4, 1 to 3 to 6, or any other particular aspect. This has to be stated, and from there you can find out how much water is required, whatever have you. Then in this case, then you'll actually have to deal with it. So that means that specification is quite important. Even the mixing just of concrete, if the engineer wants that thing to be machine mixed, he will state in the specification this should be machine mixed. And if it is machine mixed, then he can even state the period in which that thing should be revolving around. So that means it's very specific. I think one time I'd asked some of my students to find out why some of the buildings are collapsing so much, ladies and gentlemen. And some students did some investigation and and came up with a very nice thing, that the engineer might have done excellent job, but the mistake could be in the construction. One bit is that maybe the mixing is not complete, so then you cannot achieve the maximum strength you had actually required. So mixing is also a problem, and whatever have you. If it's not done properly, you will not achieve the strength. That means that the specification describes in detail the work to be executed under the contract, and the nature and the quality of the materials and the workmanship which is required. So I think this one we shall pick it up and elaborate on it, how these ones are done and how you can prepare the specification. Anything you do in the civil works, it must have some specification to show you exactly what is required, ladies and gentlemen. So it is so critical so that you can achieve the strength which you want. Because now, if you have said that the thing is should be machine mixed and somebody uses the hand mix, so you might not be able to achieve the strength which you require. Or in this case, then you are mixing the concrete under the on the ground, and then you have a storied building. So how are you transporting this concrete from the ground up to the higher level? Because if not transported very well, then segregation will take place. So when you are now placing in the other side, so it will not be of the same strength as you had designed for it. So that's actually quite a critical aspect. So, and if you talk about the workmanship, let's just take a chair. if you have a chair, you can actually machine finished or you can be hand finished. Then in your specification, you must actually state exactly how you want it to be in this particular case. Or in this case, then you are giving specifications maybe of repairing a building and you are repainting. So you should actually give the specification. The first bit is that you should not actually start with the paint. You should actually start with actually repairing whatever is not right there. So then you proceed. Specification will give you the whole thing up to the end point. And if you're going to use the brush or if you're going to use any other particular thing, then this is done specifically in the specification. We shall look at some of these practical specifications, and I will also be asking you to give a little bit of some of these specifications which are required. Then in this case, then the specification also details of any responsibility to be borne by the contractor, apart from those listed in the general conditions of contract, are often incorporated in this document. So specification is a very important document, ladies and gentlemen. I mentioned to you that you cannot actually compete or fill up your unit cost until you have actually looked at the specification which is required, because it will give you the workmanship which is required in this particular case. I'm seeing Gabriel Jr. trying to write something, so maybe it will come. So specification may also contain some clauses in this particular case, specifying the order in which various sections of the work are to be carried out. So this actually will be on the specification. And it will also be detailing the methods to be adopted in the execution of the work, which I've already mentioned. It will also be detailing any special facilities that are to be afforded to other contractors. So that means that a specification is a very important aspect in our civil works, or in our civil works in terms of our work. So the other bit is that the specification is one of the contract documents which I have mentioned in civil engineering work. There's no way you can actually bid for anything without that specification, so that you want to achieve what you require. I think Gabriel Jr. is saying that would specification be one of the works not to be wholly dependent on financial capability of the client. So I think Junior is trying to say that would specification of the works not be wholly dependent on the financial capability of the client. So I think one thing you should actually get into consideration, Mr. Gabriel, is that during the design period, then the engineer lies so much with the client to ensure that whatever is being done then is capable. So there's a lot of liaison between the engineer and the client during the preparation of other things. And in most cases, ladies and gentlemen, the engineer will only proceed when the client gives an okay to one particular stage, ladies and gentlemen. I think there are so many stages before we reach at this particular point. And maybe we can discuss that one in engineering management. That means that there's the feasibility study which has to be done to see whether that project is going to be viable or not, to see whether the client can be able to afford it or not. So then various alternatives can be made up, and then one alternative will be agreed on. So that means that once the work is tendered, then it is assumed that there's enough resources for that particular aspect. If it is a loan to be taken, then there is a loan for that particular aspect. This is why, in most cases, as we shall see later on, there's always this thing which comes to variation order. The engineer cannot make a major variation order without the consent of the client, because a variation order involves resources. That means that you are now going to go beyond the capability of the client. So the client has to give approval that I will be able. So once it is done so, then the consultant or the consult engineer will now inform the contractor about that variation order. And in most cases then, the engineer will always be keeping the cost involved in mind. So in this particular case then, in case there is some savings, then in case there is a small variation order, then the engineer can give the contractor a go-ahead. But in case then the variation order is of colossal sum, then the engineer, first of all, will actually ask the client whether he is capable or not. If he is capable, then the engineer will give the contractor an okay to proceed. So in this case, then, Mr. Gabriel, there is complete consultation as the work is being done. So the type of specifications and the rest. So it will be, because the engineer must bring up the cost estimate of the project, and the client must actually be able to say whether it's capable or not. And in the most cases, it's assumed that whether the client has got the money itself, you always assume that it's the borrowing which is actually going to take place. So then the engineer then now manages the money to ensure that the project is finished within agreed cost, or there could be some saving in that particular case. So, but it should not go beyond. If it goes beyond, then the client must be consulted before any other movement is taken place. So in this particular case, then the specifications and the rest will be agreed on. But then the engineer has also to be firm in the one particular case then, so that the project has to be of some quality. But there's always a consultation between the client and the consult engineer to ensure that what is being done is within the cost which the client can be able to afford. In some cases, you find that some building has installed. There was maybe when the client was trying to get some loan, maybe it was denied in the middle of that. But anyway, in most cases, when the project starts, then we always assume that the money is there, and we always assume that this money has been borrowed. In one case, not borrowed, has been a loan. It's a loan, and then the interest is being paid on. This is why there's always the construction period, so that it can be made after this particular point. Then this structure should start now giving in some resources which could actually go to repay the loan, ladies and gentlemen. And in Kenya now, if you want a house, Mr. Junior, there are some people now, what they do is that they design some houses for the people. And then now, even before the construction starts, then they ask you to pay some deposit. And then you agreed on, after a certain period, and this building is over. So then the building should be handed over to you, and then now you can start paying your loan. I think these ones are there. But then now, this thing has been going on quite well. But then now, there has been some mistrust that people pay the money, but when it comes to the time of getting back your building, then you find that the whole thing has installed. I think there are so many beatings in courts now. That was a mismanagement of the construction industry. So there are so many there, but I don't want to mention the names of those particular contract involved. But I think you have been seeing in the newspapers that you can own a house, so you can start paying. Maybe you pay after every 3 months, you pay something, and in your last payment, then the house is handed over to you. So, and then now this, but if the Chinese contractor is involved, then you'll get the house will be delivered to you at a given time. But if it extends, then it becomes a problem. Why don't we look at that one slightly later on, Mr. Gabriel? The difficulties which always hinder the project to succeed, ladies and gentlemen. But that one we shall look at in engineering management, ladies and gentlemen. So the capability, this one should be sorted out during the planning stage. You cannot actually involve the contractor without actually knowing that you have enough resources to do the work, ladies and gentlemen. So that's what it can. So let us now proceed, ladies and gentlemen. So specification is one of the contract documents in civil engineering contract. There are several of those documents, and I'll be giving them to you. Today, I just picked one, which we shall actually elaborate on as we proceed next week, how to prepare the standard specifications and whatever have you. And sometimes you always find that there are already some standard specifications, like now, if you're looking for the water pipes, you can actually, you find the inch system, and you find the metric system. So you can actually choose the metric system is KS 147 part 2, and then you find also the inch system. I think it should be KS 147. I don't know whether that is part 3. Then you also have the British standards BS 3505. So then from there you have to state exactly which one you are going to deal with. But you shall look at those ones. Those are standard specifications. But then some engineers, they would like actually to prepare their own specifications. I remember last semester, it's one of the universities, I gave one question to say that could you discuss why most of the engineers, they prefer making their specifications rather than dealing with standard specifications. Each of these ones has got the advantages and disadvantages, but we shall look at them later on, ladies and gentlemen. So now let us proceed further. So specification can be defined as properties of materials with respect to civil engineering works, workmanship, and required products. Like now, when I was young, I didn't understand. I thought when you're having a stone, you just bring a stone and you start using it. So these stones, Kumbe, they have specifications. There are some stones which are of granite bit. There are some stones which when you put your hand, then the stones, they wear away. So there are several types of those ones. I remember in my rural area, they have somewhere where they get the stones. But these stones, ladies and gentlemen, they are very funny stones. If you carry them and they hit on the ground very fast, then they split into pieces, ladies and gentlemen. So that means that there are several of these ones. You can't just say, could you use the stones, because now the stones might be different. There are also other stones which I mentioned to you. If you rub on them, then they start wearing away. But there are also some stones which nothing will happen to them, especially those ones around the Gilgil area there. They have got very good stones. Nakuru, Gilgil area there, they have got very granite stones. So they will actually be firm. Nothing will happen to them, and they are costly. You find that I come from the lake region, sorry to mention that. But you find that some of us, if you want a very strong one, you can order the stones coming from Nakuru and that particular aspect so that you achieve whatever you want. That means stones also, they are of various specifications which you can use. I think you know about these ones, ladies and gentlemen. So we have to look at the materials. Even if you take cement, there are various types of cement. Actually now, I think Bamburi has made his name. That's a very good one. But you find that depending on which type of bamburi you buy, there's one bamburi of a very high quality, there's also another bamburi of a low quality. People just buy it, it's bamburi, then you get it. So if you get Mombasa cement, how do they compare with that one? I think that now we have got several factories having the cement. There's the Mombasa cement, there's the Baburi cement, there's the Simba of Nakuru, there's also another one of Awasi Kisumu. There are now so many of those ones. But then when you're doing your work, you will actually find out which is the best one for the plaster, which is the best one for what. So that means that we have the specification will define the properties of materials required. Or when you are actually doing the plastering, which type of sand are you going to use? So in most cases, people like to use either the lake sand or the river sand, because now those ones come when already the sand has been washed. There are no particles on them, so that when you do the plaster, then they hold very much. But if you get sand from just a quarry, that sand might be having a lot of dust, so it will not do quite well. That means that any material we have, you must actually specify what exactly do you need. I've given you an example of the sand, because sand can be having different qualities. You find the river sand is good because the sand has got no dust on it, so it can hold the cement and aggregate quite well. And there's the quarry sand, which is not the best because it has got a lot of dust on it, so it will not give a very good job, which is required, ladies and gentlemen. So these ones you might think about it. So then the workmanship is also quite important. Are we going to do it machine finished? Are we going to do it hand finished? How are we going to deal with it? If it is the floor, are we going to put the tiles and whatever have you, and which type of tiles of this one? Because now Kenyans, they put the tiles, but you have got different types of tiles. There are others which are quite good. There are others you just put there because it's a tile, but it's of the lowest quality, ladies and gentlemen. I think you know about this one, ladies and gentlemen. So we shall look at these specifications in terms of materials and workmanship, ladies and gentlemen, and the product required. But in your design aspect, if you find that there's already a standard specification which is there, then when you're actually doing this, then you quote that standard specification. You are assuming that the contractor should be having a copy of that standard specification, so that actually can actually get it from there, ladies and gentlemen. So we shall see how to deal with these ones in our future lectures. Also, in the ideally, specification is prepared by the engineer to provide written technical information, mainly on the quality of the materials and the workmanship. So I've already mentioned that one to you. Specification is an explicit set of requirements to be satisfied by a material design, product, or service. I think you will actually look at some roads. If you look at the roads class A, you find that they have a specification that they are rather thicker. But if you look at roads class C, so they have got a very small amount of tarmac within a very short time. They are already worn out. So even in the road sector, we have this specification. I'm sure those who deal with the highway, they know about this one. Although when I was young, if I see a tarmac road, I think that they are all the same. No, according to the class, they have different specifications. This is why you find that for the lower classes, they wear faster than of the higher classes, because the specification is rather it's not as stringent as the other particular aspects. So specification is an explicit set of requirements to be satisfied by a material, design, product, or service, which is like that. So I think now you are understanding the need for the specification. So in structural drawings, ladies and gentlemen, shape and size of different components are clearly mentioned in the document. But then it is not possible sometimes to show workmanship in the drawings and the rest. So these ones now come under the specification, just as I've said in my slide. So in structural drawing, shape, size of different components are clearly mentioned, but it is not possible to give details about the materials and the workmanship of the work, or methods, tools, and plans to complete the work. So all this will come under the specification. If you look at the structural drawings, you cannot show everything there. Then the specification must be accompanied with that particular aspect. Just for an example, ladies and gentlemen, in drawing, it is clear that plastering is to be done on the walls, but it is not clear from the drawing what should be the thickness of the plaster. So, and how many number of coatings of the paint is required. So all these ones comes under the specification. So the drawings are short of these ones. Drawings, they give a guideline, but the specification should be complete in its totality. I think when I was young, then things were easier. When there was a contract and you want some material to read, you just go and then pretend that you are also a contractor. Then you'll be given those materials. But and then you will have it, and then you don't return. But these days, then, when you want this, and you must make some payment for you to get it, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not as free as you used to get it a long time ago. But nowadays, for you to get it, then you must pay some initial amount of money before you can. These documents can be released to you, ladies and gentlemen. Before, during my younger days, then if there's a contract, you just go and pick that you are also trying to do so, and then you get your reading materials from there. So how many number of coatings of whitewash required, the color, and whatever view, all these ones come under the specifications, ladies and gentlemen. So therefore, specifications are instructions meant to supplement the drawing to provide technical requirement of the work. So that means that drawings alone is not complete. It must be accompanied by some instructions. And if you give a contractor the drawings alone, he might be putting for you very cheap and inferior things there. But the specification will say clearly what's required. So the drawing, the specification will give complete requirements of the structure. So you must read the drawing and the specifications, and then from there the BQ. Sometimes some people think that the BQ is complete. No, the BQ is not complete. The BQ just tells what is required. We shall see samples of the BQ. We shall also see sample the specifications. Like I mentioned to you, if you take the foundation work, ladies and gentlemen, then when you try to give the specification, you start from the clearance of the site. So how should it be done? So in this particular case, so, and where should you take those things which you have cleared? Then from there, you can actually proceed. How do you take out the topsoil? And you realize that this topsoil should not be thrown because you might need them later on. In the specification, you will say where they are going to be placed, ladies and gentlemen. So all these things are required. So, and then specification will tell you exactly what you will do after the end. But I think we shall take them more into the detail, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I just wanted to mention the meaning of specification. Then from there, then we shall take it up, ladies and gentlemen. So I think I've already mentioned the purpose of the specifications, but now let us just then look at it and then just conclude by looking what is really the purpose of specification. But from my talk, I think you have now gathered what is really the purpose of specification. So a civil engineering specification is read in conjunction with the drawings and bill of quantities to supply the contractor with all the information he needs to submit a tender and execute the works. That means that specification is an important aspect in terms of the procurement and construction period. So that's actually a very important aspect in one case or the other. So and then the main function of the specification is to describe fully workmanship and materials required to carry out the contract. It forms, in fact, a schedule of instructions to the contractor and will, to a large extent, determine the quality of the executed job. So that means that specification is what shows, gives us the final aspect which you require from any job. So it's a very important aspect, this document of the specification. Now, if carefully followed, the quantity and quality of work will be assured. That means that if Chomba Construction Company is doing some job, and also junior construction companies doing some job, if you give the specification, then they should end up having the same outcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is actually what is required in this particular case. I used to joke with one of the class reps. I think of 2 years ago. I think he has already gone. He used to be a very good person. So I used to say that he is a contractor, and actually I'm just forgetting the name. So I used to mention that he's a contractor, that he used to do a very good job, ladies and I'm sure in the end he may be a contractor, because I really portrayed him as a contractor. He was looking like a contractor. He was behaving like a contractor. So in a very nice way. So I will only describe Mr. Chomba once he has left, but now I cannot describe him. So, ladies and gentlemen, so if carefully followed, the quantity and the quality. I think you have now got it, Potters. Thank you very much, Mr. Chomba. And I think that person was very good. And this is when I started my first online lecturing with the Potters group. And I think the first lecture, I was not able to deal with it, because now I didn't know how to start and the rest. So then we had through telephone and the rest. Then we talked with Potters. From there, then I managed to take off from the very beat. So we used to have a very nice beat. So, and I always say, Potters Construction Company, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Chomba. So if carefully followed, the quantity and the quality of work will be assured, ladies and gentlemen. So, and then the specifications give the idea of the materials to be used, as such can be collected prior to the start of the work. This method helps the field staff to complete the work in the stipulated time. Specification checks the strength of materials for work involved in a project. I think some of my students had given them an assignment to say that then why are most of the buildings are coming down? That was under the engineering management. Then I was saying them to look at them in terms of ethics, in terms of that. So was the construction being done in an ethical manner? So they end up saying that in most cases you find that the strength of the concrete which is there is not the strength which has been designed by the engineer. What happens is that the contractor now gets an easy way of doing the work, especially if there's no proper supervision, then they always have a shortcut. So in the end, then the building goes up, but not having the strength which you had anticipated. This is why it's recommended that supervision must be done, so that everything which is there should attain the strength which is required. You know, long time ago, most buildings you're not used to collapse, because now people are using the slide rule. When you use the slide rule, you always go to the higher side. But these days, when you are using this technological aspect, you become precise, such that if somebody makes a major mistake in the contract, in the building, whatever view, then collapse could happen. But long time ago, the slide rule, you always overestimate. So then that means that we used to over-design with the use of the slide rule. But these days, then we are precise that if a small mistake is done, then you can see the results. So specifications give the idea of the materials to be used, and as such can be collected prior to the start of the work. This method helps the field staff to complete the work in a stipulated time. Specification checks the strength of materials for work involved in a project. So I think that is actually quite a specific aspect. Then the cost of unit quantity of work is governed by specifications. This is true, ladies and gentlemen. I think later on, when we shall be discussing this one, I'll be mentioning to you then how do you come to the cost of the unit. One of these one is that before you tender for your work, you go to whoever is dealing with the cement, it should give you the cost. You keep on getting the cost from the other bit, and then now you build up your cost unit. But most of our African contracting company, they wait until it is 2 or 3 days to the deadline. Then they sit down on the table. Then they say, this one we did like that. Can we add a bit of the percentage? No, 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 no. You must get the thing there so that your unit cost becomes realistic. And there is one thing which we shall see later on, that if you're dealing with this one, you can always make a mistake. You can actually forget one area to put the unit cost. But in terms of the contract management, if you don't put the unit cost there, it is assumed that that was your secret of actually getting the job. So you will do that job, but you will not be paid according to that one. I think in terms of construction management, I think it's very funny. If you forget to put a unit cost somewhere and you become the most responsive bid, you'll be given the job, but when you're doing the job, where you did not put the unit cost, you will not be paid. It's assumed that you had covered that cost somewhere else, and that was a technique for you to win the whole thing. So we shall see how we deal with this later on. So specifications describe and specify the nature of the work and the method of construction. Specifications give detailed information regarding the quantity and quality of the material, which enables the contractor to estimate the cost correctly. I mentioned to you that estimation of the cost, you have to be careful for you to be continue with your work. In normal circumstances, get the unit cost from the subcontractors. If you are bidding, if you are a sort of concrete work, you go to the supplier of concrete, he will give you your supplier of cement, he will give you that one. You go to your supplier of sand, give you the cost. You go to your supplier, maybe water is always known. You go to the supplier of that. Then you build up this one, then you get the unit cost. You should not assume that the unit cost for you to last in the business. And then you also put your overhead. So, and the overhead, in most cases, people put 10%. But if you have not been having job for a long period, then you can reduce your overhead so that you keep your staff. And there's also one thing in the construction bit. If you don't keep your staff, then you cannot win another job, because when you are bidding, you are required to show what is your staff and what's their qualification. That's why sometimes if you have not had a job for a long time, you can bid for the job, not really for you to get a lot of money, but to keep your staff, ladies and gentlemen. So if you used to put maybe 10% overhead, you can even decide, even only put 5% overhead, so that you can be able to get the job, so that you keep your staff with you, because getting the next job will depend on the staff which you have, ladies and gentlemen. Because in this particular bid, when you're actually bidding, it is required. So what is your staff nature? What are the machinery you are having? Whatever have you, then all that will be evaluated. But we shall be able to do that one, and then we see actually how do we deal with that one. That one we shall also do, ladies and gentlemen. So specifications give detailed information regarding the quantity and the quality of the material, which enables the contractor to estimate the cost correctly. That means the correction of the unit cost is so important. And in most cases, ladies and gentlemen, we shall deal with this one. The best contract for a very big job is the cost unit, because even if there is extension of the work, it will depend on the cost unit. So the lump sum project is not always the best, ladies and gentlemen. We shall look at the various types of contract and see which is most appropriate. But for a big project, a big civil engineering project, the unit cost is the best, because then now if this is an extension of work, then it is based on the unit cost which you had actually quoted before. But if it's a lump sum, it gives in problem. And there are some cases where the contract is required even before the drawing is done, ladies and gentlemen, if you are in emergency. So all these are types of contracts which are there. There are also some contracts which the employer would like to have one particular contractor to do the job. So this one is actually known as, it is you just make agreement of the two, and then you proceed. But we shall look at all these ones later on, ladies and gentlemen. So it gives detailed information regarding the equipment, tools, and plans to complete the project, which enables us to procure them beforehand in time. So that's when equipment are also required. But then there's a provision, ladies and gentlemen, because not all constructors might be on this one. Then now you can actually lease equipment from another company, but during the bidding, you give a letter showing that you are going to release this one. And then once you have released it, then you get this plastic bid, then you bandika on those lorries. So everybody might be thinking that Chomba Construction Company is so big such that it has got so many lorries. Some of them would not be Chomba, but it's only that they are bandika, the plastic showing Chomba. Those lorries could be belonging to somebody else under the lease agreements. All these things are practicable. So cost of work depends mainly on the specification. If specifications are changed, the cost of work is also changed. Specifications give correct idea about the estimated cost so that funds can be arranged accordingly. So I think I'd already mentioned to Junior in this case that specifications are quite ideal. It also corresponds to the cost, ladies and gentlemen. Any change of those ones, then it brings in a problem. We shall see later on under the conditions of contract. So when you're the consulting engineer, if you want to have an additional aspect, whatever of you, you must consult the client must give you a written approval before you can actually communicate to the contractor. But if you are a very good designer, ladies and gentlemen, if you are a very good cost management person, you can have some saving. But then if now there's some variation of the works, then you can actually deal with them under the saving which you have already made. So cost of work depends mainly on the specification. If specifications are changed, the cost of the work is also changed. Specifications give the correct idea about the estimated cost so that funds can be arranged accordingly. So I think that answers Mr. Gabriel's questions. May be required for court cases as an evidence in dispute. So in this case then, in case you decide to go to the court, but always we recommend arbitration, you have to go to the court, then specification is a very important document. It will be deposited in the court. So that means then the court will be putting their judgment in regard to the specifications which are allowed. But I was mentioning to you, in civil engineering works, there's no need to go for litigation because this will take so many years and the rest. By the time it gets finished, then your money is also finished. It is good you go for arbitration, which is very fast and confidential, so then your name is not going to be tarnished. So then you will actually, any person will be thinking that you are so holy, yet you are not, but then it is not actually given to the public. Specification is a demonstration of statutory compliance. That means that in a court of law, it can function. And then it should also indicate whether you are in compliance with the work which is done. Because if you do something according to the specification, then you are actually complying. So specification is a project management aid. So that means that if you are managing the project, then I think specification can have a very important aspect. So the specification acts as on-site manual. So it is actually a manual which can actually assist in that particular aspect. So then I think we have some 14 minutes remaining. So I was thinking that maybe we could start the standard specification in our next bit, because today I was just doing the introduction, and I think you have got the inside of it. I'll talk with Mr. Chomba. I will also talk with the geomatic people, so that we sort out the clash of this subject, so that, of this unit, so that next time it is only for one class rather than two sharing, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, then I say thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope we shall continue on the Monday as we proceed. Thank you very much. Have a good day and a good week. So let's stop there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.